Hello and welcome to Conversations with Barbara. I'm Barbara Kanelopoulos, and with me today is Ken Peal. He's here to talk to us about his book, Bells of Falmouth. Welcome to the program, Ken. And you describe your book as a love letter to Falmouth, and it's all of that, a town that you care about very much.
Yes.
But you also say that it is less than scholarly. I would say it certainly is very comprehensive. You've talked about a lot of the bells. So let's begin by asking, where did your curiosity about the bells of Falmouth begin?
Well, it started in the church that I go to, John Wesley Methodist Church, which is up Gifford near Coonamessett. I've been going there for a long time, and one day I walked down the Sunday school hallway and discovered in one of the Sunday school rooms there were some bells and parts of bells, which was surprising to me. I have some pictures actually. Number one.
Oh, let's look at that.
So this was totally unexpected, and there was just things that didn't belong in the Sunday school room. And picture number two is another one of what was in that room.
Yeah.
And just a lot of stuff. Number three is another one like that. And I started asking questions, and I found out that this was a bell that had come from the Woods Hole Methodist Church down in Woods Hole. That building is now owned by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and picture 35 shows the bell as it is now, the church, which is now the Hui Visitor Center.
That's picture 35, you said?
35, right, yeah.
Oh.
That's not it. No.
Is that?
So that just got me curious about how many bells there were in
Right.
town, and I started looking around and discovered there were quite a few. And
Right.
being an engineer, I started getting information about each
Right.
one and putting
But,
it into a spreadsheet.
that strikes me as
Got
so
me started.
natural that you walk in a room and there's a bell sitting on the floor. What happened to that bell?
Well, it took a committee a couple years within the church to decide what we should do with it.
I see.
We ended up having it mounted on its original stands. The bell is, I think, 1884, and the stands were still there. We got it mounted on the stands on the ground, not in a belfry, just outside the back of the sanctuary at John Wesley Church.
Oh, I see. So we can be
And
seen
it's
by
now
passerbys.
used occasionally.
Nice.
In fact, we have a little video of that. I think that's number 4. If we could just run
yes,
that video.
let's see that.
Just listen to the sound of this bell when we strike it. So there's quite a nice long resonance to the bell.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's in as good condition as it was in 1884. we had to replace the clapper, which is the thing inside
see.
which strikes the bell, because the other one was corroded away.
Yes.
But it's now in use for special occasions, or November the 1st, All Saints' Day, remembering the people who have passed.
I see.
So
And it's rung by hand.
that's right. Yeah, we don't have a
Yeah.
ringer or anything like that. And I have another little audio here just to get us the sound of what bells are like. This is not from Falmouth. This is actually Guildford Cathedral in the south of England.
Oh my.
So that is number 5. This is a loud clanging bell. So listen to that.
what a treat to be able to hear this. When you trace etymology of the word bell, B-E-L is Old English, and it came from the word bellow, which is, and also was used as a verb, to bell, which means to put a bell on something to make a noise. So sound is sort of implicit in the word bell.
It makes the sound of a bell.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
yes.
right, yeah.
Now, you have a map of the location of the bells of Falmouth that you write about.
That's right. After I realized how many there were, as I say, I started putting them into a spreadsheet. But I put them on a map, and I have some here. Number 6, it's actually 4 different parts of town, and this, I think, is downtown. I can just give you a quick view of where they are. If we look at this, on the very left there is Highfield Hall. So all these little red dots are bells.
Yes, yes.
And that's Main Street. You can see there's the Congregational Church there, and there are 2 bells at St. Barnabas. There's a bell down by the porter's office, what's it called? The Marine Park, sorry, right down there. That's number D on the list there. And then at the very bottom right is where Union Chapel used to be. That bell is missing. I know a lot about it, but it doesn't exist anymore. So that I put on the map. The next one, sorry.
How is it that a bell can go missing? Though they're huge.
I can tell a story about that if you like.
Yes.
In the 1870s, I think, a couple of businessmen from Worcester came to Falmouth and bought up a whole lot of land that had this idea of making Falmouth a resort, which was sort of ahead of their time in the 1870s. And they bought land, including what we now call Falmouth Heights. And they had the streets all mapped out. And at the Heights, right in Crown Avenue and the circle there, he built a chapel, which was not originally to be a chapel, but it served various functions over many years.
Yeah, right.
And eventually, with the onset of the car and a lot more tourists, the chapel area became a hazard for people walking and driving. And at the same time, the chapel was no longer used. We're now talking of the 1920s and 30s.
Oh, I see.
And it became decrepit. So eventually the town bought it and demolished it. And I have a couple pictures of that, which, anyway, in the process of that happening, the bell disappeared. Now I think when the town bought it, probably made an inventory of what was in the building, but that may be gone. 13, number 13 shows you the building, the Union Chapel.
13. And so, do you think it'll ever be found? I mean,
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. And number 14 shows it just as it was being demolished.
That's quite a. Oh, I see. But that's quite an edifice. That's huge.
It was a beautiful building. Yeah.
And what happened is that membership lessened and people just stopped going.
People became more independent, and there wasn't so much congregational activities and that sort of thing.
Yes, and there were perhaps other churches that drew people away.
Right. It was not primarily a church, but it did serve as a chapel during the summer. And they had services.
Yes, sort of like the reunions that were going on, the gatherings that were going on in the vineyard and elsewhere.
Like, what is it at the vineyard? I forget the name of the area where they have all the houses.
Yes.
So it's like that.
Where they had these communal meetings.
Right. So we go back to the map, which is number 6.
Yes.
St. Barnabas. Okay, that's Union Chapel. Okay, the next one is number 7. And this is what I call East Falmouth. It's actually North Falmouth, West Falmouth. And you can see a few marks on the West Falmouth Church, bottom left there, North Falmouth Congregational Church up there, H, I think. And over on Sandwich Road, there's the East End Meeting House, has a couple of bells, and the Jewish congregation has a bell, which is interesting. It's not in their synagogue, but it's on the grounds.
Yes,
and the UU Church has a bell.
Yes, it's visible as you drive by.
No, that's a different one.
Oh.
That's the one that was in the East End Meeting House when it was a congregational meeting house.
Oh, I see.
That's been on the ground there for quite a while, and it's cracked, can't be used. But Elias Lieberman somehow got my name and said, I have a bell lying on the ground up here. So let me see if I can find that quickly. Number 24, and this is a bell that has a little bit of history. We don't quite know where it came from, and it has no inscription on it, so we can't quite identify it. It's lying there in the dirt, and I've been informed that it's about 1890, probably Blake which is the foundry that made it. I have a history, a theory of where it may have come from in the town, but I can't prove it. So it's just an interesting artifact. I'd like to get it moved maybe to the Historical Society and put on display.
You know, it looks, I want to say that it's steel rather than bronze.
No, the greenish part is bronze. That's how it ages.
Bronze.
That's right.
So it really is not an inferior bell. It's really
no, it's a very
well
good bell.
made.
Yeah. The yoke, the brownish part there is cast iron steel.
I see.
So. The next map I think is 8, which is nope, that's not right. Yeah, this is Woods Hole. You recognize the layout, I guess.
Yes.
Down right on Eel Pond, there's a couple of bells at St. Joseph Church in the tower. There's a couple in a private home there. The Church of the Messiah has a bell. Those are all right down the village. Mm-hmm. And up going back towards Falmouth, there's one in the Hui warehouse, which is off one of the ships, the RV Chain, which is a relatively famous ship from Hui. And then the two at the very top are in Spore Gardens. There are 2 bells in Spore Gardens. So.
Do you have a picture of the Spore Garden bell?
I do. That's number 11. There it is. Look at that.
My.
Yeah.
While we're looking at that, can you tell us something about the manufacture? I had mentioned steel bells. That what is the metal?
It's bronze, which copper and zinc and other things. I'm not quite sure of the mixture, but they're all bronze. They're pretty much the same mix, although individual foundries claim they can make different sounds of bells by changing the menu, the content.
Yes.
But the recipe.
Certainly, a bell made of steel is not as resonant as bronze.
That's right. It's a totally different sound, and of course it corrodes, whereas the bronze really does not.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
The Paul Revere bell, it must be really high quality.
Paul Revere founded. The Paul Revere Foundry was noted for bells with a superior sound.
Yes.
Just that long, lovely, characteristic resonance.
Yes.
And that's kind of how he's made his name. A lot of other foundries at the same time in the U.S. made more bells, and some made bigger ones, but Paul Revere's claim to fame was the quality of the sound that he made.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sound is everything.
That's right. Yeah.
And by the way, the Latin word for bell is campana, and I think that's also the Greek word for. And so, may I call you a campanologist?
A beginner, maybe, but there are people that make their life study of it.
Yes. They're the study of bells that can take a lifetime. That is interesting. And there is also an American Bell Society.
Oh yeah, there are several societies, and that's one of them. There's international ones, and they have annual meetings and journals, and the same thing as serious organizations do, and monthly publication.
So people have always been curious about bells. Well, they do. They're historical artifacts. They play such a role in ordinary life, in bringing the time as the bell in the Congregational Church, the Paul Revere bell does. My son happened to tell me he was trimming some hedges across the street, and he knew as soon as the bell rang 12, it was time to stop for lunch. And then there are bells that we ring for school.
Yep.
School bells.
Yeah, it used to be in the 19th century that no school would be built without having a bell.
Without a bell.
Yeah.
Yes.
And churches in those days too,
Yes.
almost always had a bell. That's right.
And then on a sadder note too, we have bells that would ring upon the death of someone with a particular rhythm in the sound of the the rhythm of the bell
Yeah.
as it rings.
There used to be kind of a code, the sequence of the ringing, like you say, they would ring sets of 3 together and then repeat that again. So if they repeated it, that set of 3 times,
Yeah.
that means a man had just died.
Yeah. Dong, dong, dong.
And then pause, and then...
Dong, dong, yes,
Right.
yes.
So if we did it
yeah.
3 times, it was a man. If in 2 times, it would be for a woman.
Oh, that's
And
really
there was
interesting.
a different code for a child. I forget what that
Yeah,
was. It wasn't
yeah.
3.
Yeah.
But after they did that, then they would ring individual strikes of the bell to give the age of the person who had died.
Right.
So
The
it's a way of
age.
telling the
Yeah.
community probably who it was that died.
Think of all that communication by sound.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we've come a long way in our technology, but in earlier years, people must have depended upon the bells.
And
to
for
let them
time
know
too, like you
what
said.
was happening.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So I can see why we have this interest in preserving them and also finding out more about them. And
It's kind of expensive if not in Falmouth, but some churches have quite a few bells.
oh,
And that each bell is several £100 or a couple £1,000, depending on how big they are. So the structure has to be really strong, and the building has to be able to take all that weight.
And by the way, you had written about the book was published in 2023, and I was going to ask if anything has been done to repair. At that point, you write about the need for some repairing of the belfry before it falls. Has anything been done since then?
Well, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but I've become interested in the what's called the Chamber of Commerce building.
Yes, yeah, in what used to be the Chamber of Commerce building.
Lawrence Academy originally, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. One of my projects I'm working on now after this is getting the historical basis for what needs to be done at the Chamber building, particularly around the cupola, the steeple up top there.
Yes,
And
sometimes those critical repair and it gets neglected until it's too late.
Right.
So let's hope something's being done.
Well, we're working on that. Michael Skasparin is the president of the Chamber of Commerce, is putting together a proposal for the Community Preservation Committee.
Oh, good, good.
And we're very hopeful that that will get us some funds to make some necessary upgrades. And I have a particular interest in some of the aspects to the cupola itself, because there is a bell there, but since 1976, I think maybe it's not been ringable. No, I'm sorry. It got blown down in the Hurricane Bob, 1993, and it was put up again. But when they reinstalled it, they fixed the bell. It has no clapper, so it can't be rung.
I see.
Now, there is a way we can fix that fairly inexpensively, and I'm trying to get that included as part of the CPC work.
Good.
So,
what are some of the other bells that are worth that you want to tell us about?
well, the Paul Revere bell, of course, people like to hear about. That's number 10 and number 34. This is in the Congregational Church on the Green.
Yes.
In 1796, I think it was cast originally, and been in service ever since. This is a close-up of the top portion of the bell. The story there is, this bell is a Paul Revere bell, but it was made in an unusual way. The inscriptions on the bell, which you're seeing a little bit of here, normally are built into the casting. So when the bell is cast, the letters stand out.
Oh, I see.
These look like they've been applied afterwards.
They look as if they were glued on of some sort.
Which is very unusual. I've spoken to some real campanologists about this, and they just don't understand what happened. So you can see that the line there was part of the famous saying that's on almost all Paul Revere bells is, the living to the church I call, and to the grave I summon all. That's on almost all Paul Revere bells. And that was the grave, that word you could see there.
Grave, I see.
And part of that was missing. Yeah, so the A is broken and That's grave. There's the L missing too. No, the grave and then the I. That's right.
What
So part of the story there. Sorry.
The saying again, to the church I summon all.
No. The living to the church I call.
The living.
And to the grave I summon all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
There's actually another version of that which is more common in Europe, which is almost the same. I'm trying to see if I can find that here. And that one is, I to the church the living call, and to the grave do summon all.
I see.
Almost the same, but Revere had a little different version of it.
Yeah. So,
but the interesting story about that bell is we have the receipt when it was sold to the church by Paul Revere, signed by Paul Revere. But back in the 1950s, there was a couple who done a lot of work studying Paul Revere bells throughout the Northeast and maybe more. They were called Evelyn and Edward Stickney. They did a lot of serious work about this and published various things. And part of the thing they did was to visit every Paul Revere bell that was in service and verify it. When they came to Falmouth the first time, which I think was 1953, they disqualified it because the letters on the bell, nowhere does it say Revere Boston, which is kind of the crucial thing. Now, we had the receipt for it, but that could be a receipt for a different bell. So for a while, it was not classified by them, at least, as a Revere bell. But a man in the Congregational Church named Jack Allen took it upon himself to take a close look at that bell. Now we're in the 1980s.
Yes.
And the Stickneys were still around, and he made the Stickneys, man and wife, come back and look at the bell again. And he convinced them that there was an area of the bell where the letters used to say Revere Boston, and they'd fallen off.
I see.
So then it was qualified as a Revere bell.
Yeah. I would think that pretty certain that it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no question.
So.
Oh, good for him. Otherwise, that would have been lost.
Well, it's pretty clear. But the other part of that story is the receipt that we have was donated to, I think, the Historical Society in about 1900 by a lady called Martha Butler, who found it, the receipt, the original receipt, in her family belongings somewhere. And that was, I think, 1900. And up until then, it was lost. It was in their family belongings from 1796 to 1900.
Interesting.
So she found it and made a big difference.
It would have been a bell without its pedigree.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the most famous bell in town. It's the oldest one.
Yes.
It's not the largest one, actually. The one we had a minute ago there in Spore Gardens is the largest one. That's over 2,000 pounds. So, interesting, number 12, St. Barnabas Church has a Blake bell from 1891. And bells are big, complicated things, you know, but this little
Blake
trademark you're looking at there is about 1 inch square on a bell which weighs probably 800 pounds. It's this little tiny mark.
Oh.
And it's just like a work of art, you know?
Yes. And is it rung periodically?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's regularly used. Yeah. Most church bells in town, I think, are used regularly.
Oh, they are in use.
Yeah.
Good.
They're St. Anthony's Catholic Church on East Falmouth, eastern part of Main Street, have a nice cupola and a bell in it, but they don't ring the bell. It's for complicated reasons. But they have a really nice electronic carillon from a company called Verdun. Right. And if you stood there and listened to it, you'd think you're listening to bells.
Really?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Define carillon. How is that different from?
Carillon is a group of bells, and the number varies, which are able to be played by striking. So they're tuned to different notes on the musical scale, and their control is brought to a central sort of keyboard. So you can play a tune, or a hymn, a song, maybe a patriotic song.
Is this done electronically? Or do
No.
They
No,
have
the
ringers?
modern electronic ones are digital sound. They're not bells.
I see.
They're usually played by a carollaner, which is like a campanologist, only a person that plays the bell. And generally, they're big woody things. You've got to whack each one.
I see.
Yeah.
So some parishioners there are the ones who are ringing.
Probably, yeah, that's right.
Nice. Yeah, it must be a beautiful sound.
That's really nice. And those are different kind of bells because they're tuned to have like a single note. Most bells are tuned for the resonance, to have a general broad bell sound.
Yeah.
But those are tuned so you can hear a musical sequence when you play them. So, but the St. Anthony electronic carillon is pretty good. So,
that's interesting.
yeah. The Wacoit Congregational Church, 38,
Oh, yes.
is a beloved landmark in town.
Yes.
And it was renovated. The big tower was renovated quite a few years ago now. And when they had it on the ground in pieces, unfortunately, nobody took a picture of that bell. So now it's up there. It got put up again, but there was no picture of it. It was a Hooper bell from 1850. And I managed to get Hamilton Tree Company to take me up there one day in one of their bucket trucks.
Okay.
I had a little adventure because the only way to get at it otherwise is to crawl out on the roof and walk along the peak of the roof. And
oh, no.
I'm not doing that.
Good for you. That's
So I was able to get a picture of it.
Right. That was adventurous, but less dangerous than
that's
in
right.
the other way.
There's the next picture is a person called Bob Slater, who is the archivist there. That's 39, there he is.
Yes.
He gave me a tour, great guy. Since has passed, I think, but lovely church. You get into not just bells, but the buildings.
Yes, yes.
I got involved in the East Falmouth Elementary School.
Oh, that's quite a story
Oh,
there.
it was amazing.
Yes.
Let me see. Number 15. This building was originally built and it had a bell in 1866. And it was on the north side of Route 28, just at Davisville.
Yes.
And the building is still there. That's
Yes.
the original schoolhouse. If the next
Right.
picture, which I guess is 16, that building is still in use, and that is the 1866 schoolhouse.
Oh, I see.
So that building, or the schoolhouse version of it, lasted until the 1920s, when the town built an elementary school on the other side of the road, about where CVS is now.
Yes.
I think that'll be probably picture 17. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So that building is long gone. It was built in 1922. I think it was demolished about 1958. And Joe Netto, man about town, told me he remembers ringing the bell in that building.
Mm-hmm.
So that bell got moved from the old 1866 building over to here. It was in the right-hand cupola that we're looking at there. And then that bell got moved when that building was demolished, and the present East Falmouth Elementary School was built. And that's on the other side of Davisville. That's the next picture. Now there's the bell.
There it is.
And this picture is from the Enterprise. I get a lot of stuff from the Enterprise. 1960 something, I think. And if you go there now, the next picture is what you see. The bell is not there.
What happened?
We don't know.
Oh. So
I've talked to the teacher underground, Mary Lou Botello, and a lot of people like that. And some of them remember seeing it, but nobody knows what happened. It's gone.
Just went missing.
It went missing.
That's remarkable.
And the little brick stand, too.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about a huge artifact. Well, those things happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you uncover just talking to people and looking things up, you know.
Well, remember you did find a bell sitting on a schoolroom floor in the church, so
That's
maybe
right. Yep.
maybe someday somebody will.
I've asked around, and I looked in the basement of the present school, which there's no junk in there. It's really neat.
Okay.
It's not there, that's for sure. Let me see. I mean, if you have any questions, I'm happy, but I'm just trying to make sure I show my pictures, that's all.
Yes, yes. Well, yes. Well, I do. I know there are so many different kinds of bells. I was quite interested in reading in your book about fog bells. Now, they only ring when there's a fog. Is
Right.
it? Tell us more about that. They're
I had
on
never heard
ships.
I never heard of fog bells either. It was new to me. And I guess I got into that from the one at the Harbor Master's office, which is, I think we already saw it. Just a minute here. I'm sorry, I can't put my finger on that.
Yeah.
It's on a stand at where the band shell is.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of people have probably driven by and maybe not even noticed it. And it is inscribed on it USLHS, which stands for United States Lighthouse Service. It doesn't have a date, but that name identifies it as being earlier than 1858.
Really? Oh.
Because after that time they changed the name. It became Lighthouse Establishment or something, so the name changed. We don't know where it served, but it was certainly a fog bell somewhere. We're pretty sure it did not serve at Nobska, although Nobska did have a fog bell before the present foghorn.
Yes.
So,
Of course. Sounding warnings for ships has become so much more sophisticated, and we're not using fog bells, so this is not in use.
no, that's right. Nowhere in the Coast Guard now do they have
Yes.
bells for that purpose.
Yes.
And there were all kinds of interesting schemes to ring the bell automatically and detect when it was foggy and cause the bell to ring, but that's old technology now. Nobody has
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Now there was another, excuse me for going on here, but there's another bell that I found made by Manili, one of the foundries, which was in their record books, went to Woods Hole. And I looked around Woods Hole and there was no bell that met their description. But I talked to my friend Bob Dinsmore, who was in the Coast Guard for many years and interested in this stuff. And he worked out, with a bit of help from the internet, that bell was delivered to Woods Hole to be installed on a lightship. Now, a lightship is
Yeah.
a lighthouse that goes out in the ocean
Yeah.
and moors
Right.
itself to act like a lighthouse. So they had a fog bell. In addition to providing light, they provided fog warning. So that I count that on our list, even though it's not really a Falmouth bell, but
Yeah.
it came to Woods Hole and went out on the ship.
Yeah.
And we traced the history of that particular lightship, LV-54 it was, and it served off Nantucket for a while, and it got hit several times
Yes.
by traffic,
Yeah.
and it eventually was served.
Apparently the waters were a little too rough for it.
No, I don't think so. I think
No?
it's just that it's a dangerous, a lightship is a vulnerable thing,
Oh, I see.
and navigators, don't always get it right, so it got hit by traffic.
Right.
Never sunk, but it was holed one time,
I
which means
see.
there was a hole in the hull. So that served until I forget 1930 something, I think.
So we have the bell anyway. It's
No, that one's gone.
that
Yeah,
was
it
a
went-
different bell.
With the ship was taken out of commission.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
I don't know what happened to the bell. I'm pretty sure it was still usable because bells are really tough. They last a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
There are a couple of, 3 or 4 private homes in Falmouth that have bells.
Oh really?
People that just like bells and spend a bit of money to put it on their lawn or display it somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, certainly bells are more than historical artifacts. It seems to me that bells have entered the language of metaphor. We have bells in literature. I'm thinking now of John Donne's wonderful poem, No Man is an Island.
Yep.
Do not ask to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. And then So we have also novels where the bells that ring in a particular Italian town announce a day of armistice or freedom. And of course we had bells ringing here during an armistice, was it?
That's right, on
Yes.
November 1918.
Yeah, 1918.
Now that little story that I told was actually the bell in the Chamber of Commerce building, which now doesn't ring, but then it did, although it hadn't been used for a while. And interesting, in the Enterprise, this story said the boys found their way to ring the bell. The boys
yes.
being young people
yes.
at the time. Yeah.
Yes. So the bell has become symbolic, as I said, the language of metaphor. And so I think that we'll be hearing about bells for a long, long time.
I hope so.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now, are you, your curiosity, it takes you in lots of different directions. Where has it taken you recently?
Well, I found a few more bells in town, which were after I'd written the book. But
I see.
I'm not really doing much on that now.
Okay.
The Highfield Hall bell, maybe we could take a little diversion there. People don't know about that, I bet. Highfield Hall, 36 and 37. People know about Highfield Hall being saved from the wrecking ball
Yes, yes.
in 1994 or something. This
Yeah.
was taken about 1992, I think, before it was almost demolished and then renovated. The bell was there then, you can see it hanging out there. And it was taken down. Bill Dyer told me a story about the night he drove a truck, and his father and a couple other people took the bell down and transported it to the Falmouth Historical Society.
I see.
So it wasn't clandestine, they did it
Yeah.
on purpose, but he remembers doing that.
Yeah.
And it was sent back, the next picture I think is 37, now that it's been renovated in beautiful shape.
Oh.
So now it's on display again, it's been cleaned up.
Yeah.
It's a memorial to one of the Beebe daughters, Mary Louisa, who died at a young age in 1883, I think. So that's new information to me, but
Yes.
it's in town, you know, a lot of stuff goes on.
And Highfield belonged to the Beebe family.
It did then,
Yeah,
that's right,
yes,
yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well,
So the other things I'm working on, if I could
right.
just let you know, I'm still interested in history of things, not so
Yeah.
much bells, but I'm having a little booklet published pretty soon about history of the Methodist Church in Falmouth, not just John Wesley, but the whole history. The churches go back to about 1700, or 1800, just before 1800. And it's just a collection of stories that I've found in various archives. And it's a little booklet that Kelly Souza at New Wave Printing is going to put together
nice.
for me. So that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I
That's
found that the Boston University School of Theology is somewhat interested in these sort of collections of church-related history.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to give it to them. I said I'm doing some work on the Chamber of Commerce building for the CPC proposal. I hope that goes forward. Hope everybody
Yes.
supports it.
So that's going to keep you busy. That sounds very interesting. I would be looking forward to reading the booklet. Good.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here and giving us, I mean, it seems to me viewers have a nice idea of where they can take a journey and simply go have a look at some of the bells that are in existence and enjoy them. So I thank you very much for coming and sharing this wonderful information about Falmouth.
You're welcome.
With us. And
I'm
with-
glad to
with all
have
of us
people
here.
interested in
Yes.
it. I've spent a lot of time on it, but it's
Yes,
been fun. It's
yeah.
been fun. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And so, viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with Barbara.